Hello there and welcome. In the previous episode, we created our harvester, and at this point, we don't even have a material and we don't have a state machine. So we are going to do this in this episode. Let's just go into our imports, generals, Europe, vehicles, construction unit. We are not going to find an actual texture, but like we did with the other buildings, let's create a material, harvester, and let's just do something very simple. Let's drag this on the harvester. It's going to look kind of weird, but maybe we can play around with this a bit. Something like this, okay? Just so it looks like something. So now that we have this harvester, we are going to create a new state machine. So to create this new state machine, we're simply going to create a new animator controller, and we're going to name it harvester controller. And we're going to click on our harvester and drag it into the animator. So now if we click on the harvester and we go to the animator tab, we can see that it's clean. So the infantry unit will have its own animator, and this will probably be for all the different units. For example, other infantry units, rocket launchers, maybe dogs, maybe tanks, and the harvester one will be for the harvester. Now we can still use these scripts, we can still move the harvester, but the main functionality of the harvesting will happen with the state machine. So now we need a bunch of states and a bunch of scripts and a bunch of bools. So let's start. We're going to create a few nodes. We're going to have an idle node. We're going to have harvesting. We're going to have going to harvest. We're going to have depositing. We're going to have going to deposit, or going to supply center. It doesn't matter. And later we may add more states, right? For example, what if the harvester is being attacked? It should stop harvesting and just run away. What happens if the supply center, or if the node is depleted? It should stop harvesting. So we may need other scenarios in the future. For now, these are the ones that we need. We're going to add these transitions. So from idle to harvest, harvesting, then harvesting to go to supply center, then to depot, and then back to harvest. So this is the loop, right? When it has a node, it will go harvesting, it will harvest, it will go to supply center, it will deposit, and then it will continue with this loop. Now we can also add another thing, maybe in any state to idle, and this will happen if we don't have a node anymore or something like that. We can do this. I don't know if it's going to work exactly like I want to, but this is just for now. Now we're going to add all the different bools that we need. So bool is full. Bool has assigned node. Another bool that will be at node. Another bool that will be at supply center or at supply. And another trigger that will be done depositing. Now make sure that these are the exact same names that you don't use any capital letters where you should not, because our code is going to use these exact bools and triggers. So they have to be the same way, okay? Now we're going to add all the different transitions. So from idle to going to harvest, we're going to set a condition that he has an assigned node, true. From going to harvest to harvesting, we're going to add at node, true. From harvesting to go to supply center, we're going to set is full, true. From going to supply center to depositing, we're going to say at supply, true. And from depositing to go to harvest, we're going to use this trigger done depositing. Now, if we don't have any assigned node anymore, so it means that the node was depleted and destroyed, or maybe we lost reference, then it's false and we're going to go back to idle, okay? Now, this is still not tested, so maybe we're going to change it. And anyway, we need more scenarios. This is just for this loop of harvesting, going to the supply center and going back to harvesting. Now we're going to start creating all the different states. And as we know with our previous state machine with the unit, each node has its own script. And these are special scripts that are state machine behavior scripts. So for the harvester, we're going to do the same thing. For the idle state, we're going to click over here, add behavior. And it may give me some errors because I already created these states in the past, so it will think that I already used them, but let's create them. Idle state harvester. It's going to take a few seconds and it's going to generate it. And you can see it over here. Where is it? Idle state harvester, and you can see that this is a state machine behavior, so it's not a mono behavior, it's a different kind of script, but we already know this from our unit when we created the state machine for the unit. Now we need to add all of these states, so let's go to the going to harvest, add a new state. So for now, we have these 5 states, right, for each one of our nodes. And now we're going to start adding the code. So first of all, let's click on the idle state. We have all of these optional methods for the state machine. We don't need all of them. We're going to delete these ones. We're only going to keep the state enter and state update. We're going to remove these comments. And because we want to have the same thing in all of our states, because we don't want to do all of this all over again, we're simply going to copy this and we're going to paste this inside all of our states. So we have the idle state, we have the harvesting state, we have the depositing state, we have the going to harvest state, we have the going to supply state. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, now we can save them. So all of our states have this state enter and state update, and we can start adding the code. So for the idle state, all we want to do is basically get a component for the harvester and set the assigned node to be null. Because when we go to idle, it means that we don't have any node. So harvester, harvester. And we may change things in the future a bit. Now, I don't know if this is even required because we go to the idle state when this bool is false, right? So this will already be null, and I don't know if we need to assign it again, but it's good that at the beginning it's also null. This is just to make sure that we really don't have any kind of node inside of this state. So we're going to save this. We're going to continue to the depositing state. Over here, all of these states are going to be rather simple. Inside the on state enter, we're going to have a reference to our harvester script. So we can copy it from the idle state. If harvester is not null, harvester deposit resources. So we have this method inside the harvester script. So you can see that this state machine is a bit different from the one we had with the unit, because most of the code is happening inside the harvester method itself, and the state machine is simply calling these methods. In our unit state machine, most of the code happen inside the state itself. So it's really your decision. You can add these methods over here. You can keep them inside the harvester script. It doesn't really matter. These are different approaches to a state machine. So when we get into the depositing state, we're going to call this deposit resource method. And we don't need this state update. Although if you wanted this code to happen inside the state machine, you could make the depositing happen inside, right? Now inside the going to supply center, we're also not going to have an update. We're only going to basically have a reference to the harvester. And harvester move to, so we call this method harvester supply center. I'm going to save, and now we also need the harvesting state. Again, we don't need the update. Again, we can simply copy this reference, harvester harvest. So all we're doing is basically calling these methods inside of the harvester script. And the last one will be going to harvest state. Again, we don't need this. And we're going to have, again, a reference to the harvester. And this time we check if the harvester assigned node is not null, then we're going to call this move to method, but this time it's going to be to the harvester assigned node. So it's a different approach with a state machine, but you can do it this way. You can have all the code inside one specific script. It doesn't really matter. So at this point, this loop should actually work. But we have two main issues. The first one is that we don't assign a supply center, and the second one is that we don't assign a node. We're going to do this a bit later when we actually click on a node and when we build a supply center, and then it will know where to go. So let's instantiate this prefab when we build a supply center. Let's first take this. Let's make sure everything is fine here. Let's make it into a prefab. Let's go into our resources, prefabs. Let's remove it from the scene. And now we are going to drag the supply center and drag the harvester over here. Now this may not be a good idea because it's going to be a child of the supply center and it may do different weird things. For example, what if the supply center is destroyed? The object will be destroyed and the harvester will be destroyed together. So it doesn't make any sense. What we want to do is instantiate the harvester over here, but not as a child of the supply center. So we're going to do something else. We're going to actually move our harvester into the resources folder because we want to instantiate it, okay? And the supply center will stay the same, but we're going to instantiate the harvester when we build the supply center. So we're just going to remove it from the scene. We're going to open our constructible. And when the constructible is placed, we're going to check what is the type of building, right? We have this building type. So if building type is supply center, we are going to instantiate this prefab. And to instantiate it, we simply need to go into the resources folder and add it here. So we can do, say, game object, prefab, resources, load, game object, prefab name, and the prefab name will be harvester. Of course, we can create a separate method for this, but I kind of don't want to create a separate method because it will be general for the constructible, and we want it to be specific for the supply center. But again, you can create a separate method. You can do it here. If the prefab is not null, we're going to instantiate the prefab. So loading is basically getting it out of the resources folder. Instantiating is actually making it appear in the scene. And then we're going to set the parent because we don't want it to be the parent of this building. And to do this, we're going to do set parent, but we're going to provide it null. And it means that it's not going to make it a child of the supply center, it's going to make it a child of the entire root of the scene. And this is what we want. Then we can also play around with the rotation. So we can just say well, let's not touch it. If we see that there is something weird with the rotation, we're just going to change it. For now, we're going to use the rotation of the actual prefab. Now, we also need to specify where we want to instantiate it. So we need to say transform position. We can provide the position and the rotation of the actual transform, which is the constructible. But this will basically instantiate the harvester in the middle of the supply center. We don't want this. We want to instantiate it over here or maybe over here, but this makes more sense. So we want a reference to our supply drop, right? Now, because this is a supply center and it doesn't have any kind of special script, it only have this constructible one, it doesn't make sense to add a reference into the constructible for the supply drop. So what we can do is two options. Either we create another script specific for the supply center and it will have a reference to the supply drop, or we can simply look for the supply drop over here. So we can say right, so it will look for this child inside the supply center named supply drop. Why is it supply drop. It will look for this child, and all of this will happen because it's a supply center, so there will be no problem if it's another building. It will find the supply drop, transform, it will save it, and then we're simply going to use this position. Now this is the simple, let's just provide it quaternion identity so it will not change the rotation. So we can simply do this, or we can actually create some kind of a supply center script, and we may need to do other calculations over there later and then add a reference. But again, maybe later we need this, so we're going to create the script. For now, this is a simple solution. We get the supply drop and we set it to be a child. Let's see if it works, okay?
Awaiting orders.
And now you can see that
Yes, sir. As you wish.
it was
Agreed.
instantiated and we can
Agreed.
use it. Now, we have two problems again. First of all, our harvester still doesn't have a reference to the supply center because we did not assign it. And this is very easily fixed by simply adding it over here. So inside the harvester, when we instantiate it, let's take our instance, harvester, instance, get component, harvester, and then we can simply say harvester, supply center equals this supply center, but more specifically, the supply drop transform. Right? And now it will have this reference for this specific supply center. Obviously, we can have extreme conditions. For example, when we have two supply centers and one of them is destroyed and the harvester is still not destroyed, and we want the harvester to start working with the second supply center. In this case, we can probably just click on the supply center for a manual connection or something like that, right? We are going to have another supply center. We simply right click on it and it will assign the new supply center as its own supply center. But these are like it's extreme situations that we will probably cover maybe later, maybe in the few episodes that we're dealing with the resource gathering, because there are many, let's say, specific situations that we also need to cover, and we can have so many of these situations and I'm not always even realizing them before they actually happen. But over here we set this, and later we can basically do this. If the supply center is destroyed, we can assign another supply center. So now if we start the game and we build a supply center, and we click on the harvester, it will have this reference to the supply drop. Now at this point, we don't have a way to assign the node, the resource node, by clicking on it, okay? We're going to do this in the next episode. But what we can do is simply manually drop this reference just for testing. Now this will not be very efficient because it's very close to our... Okay, so let's just build it over here. And now we have a reference to the supply center, but we don't have a reference to the node. So until we actually add this functionality to click on the node, we're going to take this node and manually drag it into the assigned node. And now it will automatically go to the node and start harvesting. Now if we go to the harvester, we can see the current capacity. And for some reason, it doesn't go up. Weird, okay. This was not expected. Let's see. Basically, it should go to the harvesting state. It should call the harvest method, and the harvest method will basically start harvesting, and it will add the amount to the capacity, and this will run every frame inside the update method. But obviously we don't have an update method. We're not calling this in this update method. We should call it inside the state machine update method. Oh, okay, so this was my mistake. By mistake, we added this code into the onStateEnter instead of onStateUpdate. Okay, so this is the correct method because this should happen continuously, okay? And of course, we don't have to do this every frame, but I mean, we can create some kind of global variable and then only in the start method get a reference, but it's okay. So we need to do this inside the update method, right? So it's a bit confusing because all the other states are really happening inside the onStateEnter. But this state over here should happen in the onStateUpdate, okay? Because this should happen every frame. And then it will basically add more and more every frame. And now this should work. We build supply center. And also don't worry about these health bars. Eventually we're going to maybe make them smaller, or maybe only when we hover or select the unit they should appear, because it kind of annoys us. Maybe the building ones should not appear only when we hover. I don't know. Anyway, if we go to our harvester and we drag this node, it should start harvesting. We can also see the current capacity. Eventually, we also want to add some indicators, but you can see it goes up. When it reaches 10, it will go back. And if we go to the animator, you can also see that it's harvesting. And now that it's 10, it goes back over here. And now it will deposit, so it will go down. Again, you can make this a bit faster. You don't want to spend too much time on it. And now that it's done, it will go back to this area. And now it will basically keep happening in this kind of loop. Now, there are different situations that we need to address. For example, what happens when this resource node is out of resources, right? In a few more loops, it will go to 0, and we can do different things. Maybe we should simply keep it at 0. Maybe we want to destroy this entire object. And when we destroy the object, then the assigned node will become null, and because it's null, this will become false and it's going to go to idle. Now, I don't know if it's going to become false because this is a different bool, okay? This bool over here is a different bool and it should be set somehow. So inside the harvester, oh yeah, when this will become false or null, then this will become false. So, okay, it will actually work and it will go to idle. But then we need to assign a new node or do something else. We also have situations where, let's say, we command our harvester to go somewhere else. So it should stop harvesting, but what will happen here? Will he go to a different state? Will he go to the idle state? If we click somewhere else, will it lose the node? So these are other situations that we need to consider. Another thing that we need to do is, now that we are providing the resources into the supply center, we either want to convert them into credits, because this is the only resource that we have at the moment, or maybe we want to add the resources using our resource manager, right? Resource manager. We can use this thing over here, increase resource. And it will basically increase the resource. And I mean, we can do it right now. We can go to our... Yes, for this, we will probably need to create another script, some kind of supply center script. And then when the harvester is depositing, or we can do it here, deposit resource, wait to deposit, deposit done, is depositing, false, and over here we can say something like resource manager instance add increase resources. It will be resource type credits, and the amount will be the amount that it deposited. Now, this will usually be 10, right? Temp capacity will be the current capacity. We save it, right? Then we're going to basically reduce the current capacity. And then when we are done, we're going to take this temp capacity. So maybe we had 10, maybe we had 5, maybe we had less than that. We're going to take the temp capacity and we're going to add this over here. But this should be multiplied by the credits. So we can say something like get or convert credits from, or convert resource into credits. And we create this method. Now again, I don't like that it happens inside the harvester, but it's okay, I guess, because the harvester is the one that deals with these things. So this will return an int, and the int will be the value that we actually pass inside. So we can do a switch or something like that. We can say, oh, and we're going to, of course, pass inside the temp capacity, add parameter, and we're going to say, let's say, now again, the resource that we want to add are credits. If this resource that you gathered is not credits, maybe it's some kind of diamonds or gold or whatever, so simply create another kind of resource type. And basically add this resource type. But because we don't have any other type, in the future we're going to add more resources so you can see how it works. For now, we want to convert the resource that we gathered into credits, right? For example, in Red Alert, this is the way we convert the diamonds and the spice or whatever that we gathered, we convert them into credits. So we take this temp capacity of the resource and we convert it over here. Now, this can be another kind of resource. Maybe this is some kind of special resource that costs more money. So we can pass inside the type of resource, and then we're going to convert it. And we can say that return temp capacity. Maybe we can also have some kind of type, resource type. We can say, maybe we can pass inside a resource type, oil, and then we pass in the resource type into this method, and we can check if the resource type, we can do some kind of switch. If the resource type is oil, then convert it to this amount of credits. If it's something else, but for now, let's keep it simple. Return temp capacity, for example, it was 10 multiplied by 5. Of course, this will be a float, so we need to convert it into a int. We need to cast, okay? And this can be, for example, credits per, let's say, kilo of resource or something like that. And we can save it over here, or maybe into some kind of general singleton that will handle with all of this finance or resource, we can say resource manager, and we can say, let's name it spice, for example, for now, public int credits per kilo spice. And then we can simply use it here, resource manager, credits per kilo spice. And if this is 5, it will basically multiply this and it will give us credits. And this is nice. Now again, if you want to have different types of resources, we're going to add some kind of switch and we're going to compare the type of resource and so on, okay? So we're going to do this maybe in the future to show you how we can add multiple types of resources, how we can harvest multiple types of resources. For now, we only have this very simple one type of resource that we gather and we convert it into credits. So it will return this, it will convert, and it will add this into our credits. Now we can also see how it works. Although this will happen, yes, this will only happen once. Let's see if it works. And again, we're going to have multiple resources in the future. And remember, this is the amount of credits we have, 800. We're going to assign this node. And when he's going to start depositing, well, actually when he finishes depositing, this should go up. So let's calculate. We're going to have 10 kilos multiplied by 5. So we're going to get 50 credits for this entire deposit. We're going to get 50. Okay, so for some reason it did not increase the credits. Why not? Increase, this should happen. It should also call this method on resource changed. It should call the UI, right? It should invoke the UI. Wait. Oh, I'm dumb. We did not add anything to this multiplier. So let's say 5 or 7. Harvester, node. And again, we're going to add these indicators on top of the harvester so we know if he's full, if he's not full. And again, you can do whatever you want. These could be different kinds of resources, gold, wood, whatever you want. So now when we deposit the entire capacity, this should be increased. And again, for some reason, it did not work. Maybe, yes, of course. It's already like I know what is the problem before I even check it. We did change it over here inside the resource manager, but because it was saved with 0, it did not change it over here. So we also need to change it over here. So now it will end and it's going to add. And you can see 870 credits on top. So now let's stop this. Let's make sure it's actually 7. And again, you can have more kinds. Maybe you want different kinds of resources with different values for the credits. Maybe you don't want to convert them into credits. Maybe you want to have more resources like wood or iron or whatever, and then you simply want to add it to the resources. We're going to do this as well, don't worry. This is just one type of game. We can have different types of games, the ones that convert to credits, other ones that don't convert to credits and just store the resources. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do this. But this is basically it, right? I mean, we do need to add more functionality, and we're going to continue in the next episode. We need to click on the node. And so in the next episode, we're going to add the indicators on top of the harvester. We're going to add the option to click on the node. Maybe we're going to cover a few more cases when the node is disabled. And we also want to have an option to gather different kinds of resources. So that's all for this episode. Thank you for watching. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It supports me a lot. You can also leave a like. You can share. You can become a member of the channel to support me even more. And I'll see you next time.